Thank you for joining us today at Miniature Wargaming Labs. Today we are going to be painting up one of the Goliath Maulers for our Ash Waste campaign here. This will be our expansion on the Goliath gang, focusing on the Ash Wastes. So we got them all painted up to match our other Ash Waste Goliaths. And so the one we'll be demoing in this video is this guy here, the simpler paint job. Get him tabletop ready. Took 2 days to paint these guys, but that's because of work and family obligations. Simpler than it looks, but to paint this guy, I primed him standard Mechanicus gray. I use mostly army painter paint, so matte black, Kobold skin, leather brown, gunmetal, rough iron, Necromancer, Cloak, Mars red, and Spaceship exterior. Out of the Citadel line, I used Mephiston Red, Bugmans Glow, and I used 2 washes Seraphim Sepia and Nuln Oil. I also used P3's Coal Black and Vallejo's German Camouflage Beige World War II. So let's go ahead and get started with this guy. To start, primed the Mauler standard Mechanicus gray. So the first thing we're going to paint is the matte black, and this is going to be for the hull and some of the trimmings around there, but not the tire. We're doing that something else. So we put all our black on, so I did the main hull there. Just a spot. Got a little overzealous there. You see, did most of the interior of the cab, backs of his boots, his gauntlets. That's supposed to be for the cloth wrap in there. And then seats and the rear hull. Alright. Now the next color we're going to use is Mephiston Red. Give that a shake. Now normally when I do these videos, I do mostly army painter, because people have easy access to that. But what I find is just Mephiston Red is such an awesome red. So good. So I'll just clean up around the black. We'll do the red now. So you see we've got all the red down on both the vehicle. So we've basically got the fenders there. I don't know, got the bits of armor, face mask, so you see we got the red starting to cut in around. Just had to be careful around the black here, but now we're going to do the skin. And for that we're going to use Army Painter's Kobold skin. This one I'm just going to work a little more carefully, not too much. We're going to use the metal later. Clean up between the red and the black and the skin. So we have the Kobold skin on now. Now we're going to go do some P3 Coal Black. Let's get the glare off of it. Coal Black. It's a black with a hint of blue. And so the 2 places I'm going to put it on, if I can actually remember to put the paint on the brush. I'm going to put it on the pants. We're going to put it on his brake line shifting cable, just to vary up the different blacks there. Alright, so we have our coal black on. Now we're going to go to Army Painter Leather Brown. And I'm going to use that for the seat. There's also a little strap on the bridge of his nose, so I'm just going to touch the edge of that. And he also has this strips of cloth to hold down his fan brace, and we're going to do his shin guards. A little strap right here, so we'll do that. See, now I got the brown on, the various little tiny spots, more of an accent piece. Alright, now we're going to move on to Army Painter Gunmetal finally. This one's going to take a little more time, because we're going to do big pieces like this. So you see, I guess would pass for hubcaps. The killer blade. Big fork blades right there. I'm going to do the inner tracks. But we're going to have a little more detail pieces here also. So we're going to do the chains. And we're also going to take our brush, put some paint on it, thin it down, and then just use the edge of the brush to catch the edge of the plates. And this will help separate some of the colors more cleanly, give a little more interest. So you're using the tip of the edge there. So we'll edge line all the plates, and then gotta get the weapons. So if you want to switch to a smaller gauge brush, I'll probably be doing that when I get some of these more intricate pieces down here. Ooh, don't want to forget the gauges. And so we've finished up with the gunmetal. Now, after we do the wash, we'll do some of the touch up there to make these lines a little bit cleaner. But you can see where we're going from there. Now we're going to do these panels in the front, this one in the back. I'm going to use Army Painter Rough Iron. So, now we'll move on to the Necromancer Cloak, and that is for the big wheel up front and little tracks in the back. Now, for all intents and purposes at this stage, before the wash, we're done with the primary vehicle. I'm just going to go ahead and paint up the base. I just find this is necessary for the before you put on some of the GW's technical texture paint. It's good to have a piece of paint down over the primer. So we're going to use, I forgot to say, Bugman's Glow. Now we're at the point where everything's dry enough. We're ready to start doing some washing. So I'm going to start with some Seraphim Sepia, probably my favorite for Necromunda. And this will go on all the fleshy parts. I'm going to use a small brush to do this. And just hit the skin. Be helpful if I centered it. Next up will be the best shade they make, Nuln Oil. So I'm going to set that right there. And take a messed up dry brush, wet it a little bit, and I'm just going to glue this on. Now you'll notice I used black for the hull and Necromancer Cloak for the tire, and that's for when I put the wash on. It'll make it look like it's two different substances. Remember, if you get any of the Nuln Oil mixed with the drying Seraphim Sepia, just add some interest. Who cares? So our model's not completely dry, but it's dry enough for us to move on to another part that's going to take a long time to dry, the Agrellan Earth. This is what I prefer for my ash wastes because it fits the theme. So I got my applicator tool. I'm going to use the small side, push close up to the model, and the big side when I get to the big acreage. So I like to run this right up to the edge. If you ever go on the edge, just take your finger, wipe it off like that. It makes a nice clean cut. So go ahead, finish this check string. Now everything's nice and dry, so we're going to take some Army Painter Pure Red and probably put 3 coats on this. We do that all at once. Normally 3 coats I'll just reserve for the top layer. See, the Army Painter stuff's really thin, so pick like a direction we want to go with the paint. This also allows us any place we overran with the gunmetal, we can cover up. Now on the lower sides, like down here, I'll probably put like 1 coat. And 2 coats will go in between, 3 coats before the light comes down. I also found there's like a little gouge in his breastplate that I tried to paint in. And we can cut that in a little bit, make it look sharper. There. It'll just go around flavor to taste. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Army Painter Mars Red. We're going to use that as a spot color here on the red. So I'm going to just take a little bit on the brush and just hit some of these corners here. Doesn't change the color that much, but it adds a little bit more depth. Now, what I added to this plate, I'll give you an example of how I do some of the lighting. What I added maybe to right there, just a little spot right there, but on something like the fenders, just big there, because more light would be hitting right here. So that'll be the same thing. I wouldn't put any on shin guard, but maybe a little bit right there, bunch on the top here. Definitely run this plate. So you do like that, flavor to taste, but you can see it does sparkle against the dragon red. Alright, now we're going to wait for that Mars Red to dry a little bit before we move on to some finishing techniques I got, but we're going to go back to the Kobold skin, and we're going to do similar to the Mars Red, because you might like the pallor of his skin there, but a little coat just on the tops of the muscles. Add a nice little touch there. A little more depth, especially since we're going to be looking at him across the large table. And some of these you might put like 2 coats of the Kobold skin on the tops of the muscles where they'll be coming down, and only 1 on, say, like the underside of his triceps here and down his lats. Now, the model's in a pretty good stage right now, but it looks too bright and shiny. So to tie all my ash waste models together, I like to use Vallejo's German Camouflage Beige World War II, because I had a bunch of it around. I'm going to take a dry brush, I'm going to dip it, and then for camera I have a piece of paper. I'm just going to rub a lot of it off, and then where I like to start is on the base, give me a sense of how much paint is still left on it. And then what we do, we'll just start going like this. Now what I'll do is, this is actually a great little dry brush for Kobold skin. And I'll pick how much of this dust I want going up the model. So imagine it'll hit the front, where the drive will spin it up, so there should be more dust in the back than up front. And you have to decide how much you want on the tires. Do you want the tires to still be black, or do you want them to be the color of the dust? And then we get another dip, and we'll wipe this off. See how much we have on there. So now you can just dab it. What I like to do is I like to put more dust at the bottom. That's where, imagine it'd be spinning the wheel, pushing the dust up there. So we'll go around this model, finish dusting her up. So we got it nice and dusty, but to give it a little bit more dimensionality, we're going to pull back out the gunmetal, and we're just going to do spots, kind of like spot highlights, kind of like what we did with the Mars Red. That's where we can take certain elements of the metal work, such as just a little spot right there. You can see there's different little spots here we can touch up. The one part I won't touch up is the tracks here. Imagine that have too much dust. The higher up stuff. Some of the sharp edge blades, I want to show how sharp they are. I'll put a little let it peek through. I'm going to go around and flavor to taste. So our guy's looking good, and we're almost done. But now, you don't have to do this part if you don't want. I'm going to work on the dials. So I'm going to take some Army Painter Spaceship exterior. And I'm going to take my tiniest of brushes. I'm just going to dab a little white in here. A circular motion. Oops, my bad. I'll rotate it around. I want to keep that white nice and tight. And circle, that's what I'm making circular motions. Is that it pushes the brush bristles. And if I get a little too far off course, wet my brush, then draw the paint out, and start again. Alright, now we have the dials painted in. So I'm going to take my tiny brush again, and I'm going to go back to P3 Coal Black, get a little paint on the bristle. I'm going to smooth a lot of it off. I want to draw, just starting at the bottom, just work back and forth. Kind of make like a little bump. Like that. Okay. Then we take this again, dip it one more time, take the brush against the palette, pull back, drawing a lot of it off, and then we just pick a line, and then we'll go whoop, like that, nice thin stroke down, wherever you want the dial. So we've got the hint of a dial. That actually might be too hinty. There we go. Now I'm going to take the Mephiston Red again. Gonna turn this guy sideways. Get a little bit of red in here. And just kind of like I was filling it in with the white. Just want to draw around the edge of this circle. Little red zone, so it looks like he's redlining his machine there. And that is it for the model. So what I am going to do is I'm going to paint the edge of the base. And for that, I'm going to go back to Bugman's Glow, give it a shake. And then I'm going to get, what do they call this? Large dry brush. Sure, let's go with that. And 2 coats around the edge. Alright, so now we finished our model. And there he is, got him tabletop ready. Pretty simple. I like the little use of the gauges there. So not a lot of colors. Remember, at the end of the day, dry brush on some grunge on him. Some dust from the road, and it hides a lot of sins. So, thank you for joining us today at Miniature Wargaming Labs, and we'll see you next time.